An entire world is ready
for you to start your career teaching the path to wellness.
Mastering the science of mindfulness.
And the art of coaching.
To help clients achieve mental, emotional, and physical betterment of life.
Through movement,
nutrition,
recovery, and regeneration.
Because impacting one person impacts a family.
Impacting a family impacts a community.
And impacting a community impacts the world.
Become an NASM certified wellness coach.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Random Fit. I am Wendy Batts here with my colleague and co-host, Mr. Ken Miller. Ken, how are you today?
I'm good, Wendy. How you doing?
I am great. It is a beautiful, cold, clear day here in Atlanta.
I can see that.
It looks so warm, and then you go outside, not so much. So, yes.
No, it's winter.
I'm telling you, welcome to winter. But I'm excited about today's podcast that we have because we have VP of Nutrition Services at DotFit. She is a registered dietitian and one of our Nutrition Master Instructors for the National Academy of Sports Medicine, Miss Kat Barefield, joining us. So, Kat, welcome to the podcast and thanks for being here.
Hey, I'm honored to be here. Always like chatting it up with you guys.
I'm telling you, well, today's a big day because I think it's going to be the perfect timing. We are going to talk about setting realistic nutrition goals because, we can set all types of goals, but I think the nutrition one is the one that often misses the mark. So we're excited to have you help us through this because I know I miss it every year.
Right.
Way too high.
Not alone. You're not alone. So it's all good.
Well, you know what? I'm going to actually just kind of start out. I'll do the first one, Ken, so I don't mean to kind of take over, but I'm, like I said, love having Kat here. I think the biggest question that I also get as a trainer and I hear most often is that I do set these nutrition goals. That part's easy and everyone thinks it's easy. However, how do you know if they're realistic, if you're really not if you're not you being a registered dietitian, you know everything when it comes to nutrition. If you're not really sure about differences in macronutrients and all that, how do you know if the goals that you're setting are realistic and how can you help us kind of walk through that path?
Right. So I think that the first thing is checking your mindset. A lot of people, especially this time of year, they want to do these diets and they want to overhaul all their eating habits, which is from a behavioral perspective, a bit unrealistic, right? Unless there's maybe a life-altering event, then maybe they've got high motivation levels and they're able to do that. But you got to think to yourself, okay, if I'm going to change the way I eat, if I'm going to eat differently, can I do this the rest of my life? That would probably be the first question you want to ask yourself. Can I make this change for the rest of my life? Whether it be eating more vegetables, whether it be cooking more, drinking more water, eliminating certain foods, can I do this the rest of my life? Can I make this change permanent? And you've really got to sort of be introspective and about that, because if you are someone who loves pasta and you're going to tell yourself, I am not going to eat pasta, probably not realistic.
Note to self, cookies are still on my list. So sweet.
Yeah, and that's okay. And that's okay to have cookies on your list. It's probably frequency, you know what I mean, and amount that you might want to modify based on the rest of your diet. But there's no need to eliminate anything really from your food plan. Everything can fit. So,
that's why I love you, Kat. Everything.
Everything can fit.
Have your cookies, Wendy.
Have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah. So that actually, you brought up some good point. You're talking about sustainability. Now, how do you get started on that right foot? I want to eat more salad. I want to eat more fruits and vegetables. How do I get started? Where do you tell people to start?
Yeah. So there's a couple things that you can do when you're looking at changing your eating habits. You want to first, brainstorm. What are all the things you can do to eat more vegetables per se? Can you eat them at breakfast? Can you eat them at lunch and dinner? Can you have them for snacks? What are all the opportunities? So I would probably start with like a little brain dump and maybe just come up with a bunch of ideas on how you could eat more vegetables. And then you want to look at it as how easy is it for me to execute it? Because the easier it is for you to execute, that action, maybe eat a salad at lunch, then the more likely it is that you'll do it. And you guys know, you're busy professionals. You've got a lot going on. So if you have to like take an hour at lunchtime to chop up lettuce and vegetables, and you've got a ton of meetings and other things going around, maybe kids, maybe dogs, you're not setting yourself up for success, right? So what can you do that fits your preferences and lifestyle? And what is easy to execute? So for example, for me, I do bag salads. I love there's so many variety of different bag salads nowadays, right? So I do bag salads, and I like to bake or grill a salmon or some protein on the weekends, but sometimes I can't do that. My kids have games, I'm running around. So what do I have as backup? I have frozen chicken breast strips in my freezer. So when lunchtime comes around and I have 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes to eat in between meetings or running around, then the chicken breast strips go in the microwave for 2 minutes. The bag salads go into a bowl, and voila. In 180 seconds, I have a high vegetable salad with good protein. So fits my lifestyle, easy to execute. That's what you got to think. And for everybody, it's different. That's why it's so important to, do an intake of your preferences and your lifestyle. Be realistic with what you can execute.
And that's what we're talking about today, guys. We're talking about setting realistic nutrition goals here with Kat Barefield. And, she's brought up some easy things to think about. Make it easy, except for, let me ask you this. I have a family. And I have a 5-year-old, and he's now got a crazy schedule because we're getting him involved in sports. As you know, I have like 1,000 jobs. I am and getting my hands dipped in a lot of stuff. So I'm a snacker. Like, I don't have a lot of time sometimes to sit down for breakfast and lunch and have like a pure, like a good nutritionist breakfast or lunch. So if I'm a snacker and I'm on the go, what would you offer as suggestions for someone like me? Because this is very realistic. What are your go-to snacks and why, I guess?
Yeah, I would say, you want to pair foods, and obviously you want it to be portable. So what I mean by pair foods is you might want to do like nuts, a handful of nuts, like a little portion of nuts, and with a piece of fruit. That's easy to go, right? Or a bar along with a piece of fruit, or dried fruit along with some cut up vegetables. So you want to pair foods, and you want things to be portable. I'm a huge fan, as you guys know, of whey protein or plant protein, because we all can benefit from eating high quality protein, especially as we age. So, pair foods and then make it portable. And then for little kids, what worked for my kids were those, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, bananas, trail mix, things that they enjoy, granola bars, all types of fruit that they enjoy. And that way it's grab and go. You put it in a place where it's highly visible for them and for you, or you store it in your bag or your car or your backpack, and you're always ready to go, right? But one of my favorites for travel is oatmeal. So I do a high fiber, high protein oatmeal packet on the go. Normally the hotel has you can do hot water in the little coffee maker or microwave. And then I do a scoop of whey protein. And now I have, oatmeal with a good dose of protein. And then you can grab a banana from the front desk, or an apple from, typically they have it in the lobby, right? So there you have it.
So I tell you what, how many backpacks I've had that I've found like a squashed banana or a little, a compressed peanut butter and jelly sandwich, especially after an outing or a weekend out and about. So it's good to know that I'm on the same page, but for the most part, it's for a hint for everybody, just make sure you clean out your bags when you got all that portable food, because there's been times where it's like, wait a second, I haven't seen a banana in a week. So that guy's been in there. Yeah.
I'm really worried about you, Ken. I think I need to have a talk with your wife here's the thing, between swim meets, water polo tournaments, baseball, you know what I mean? It's like you put the bag in the closet, and the next thing you know, the next event, you pull it out, and then you're like, oh.
Yeah. In your case, Ken, I'd probably do dried fruit.
Yeah.
and bars, and I probably wouldn't do the fresh fruit in your bag. Like, if you're going to grab a piece of fresh fruit, then you need to make a rule for yourself. You need to eat it right away.
You need to eat it right away.
Yeah.
So let's stick with that theme. As far as, what are we going to do to, keep the family nice and healthy? You talked about things on the go, but when we're ready for the big 3 meals, right? Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
Now, as busy as we are, like I mentioned, we got swim, we got water polo, baseball, basketball, all those things throughout the year. But we're trying to have a sit down dinner. We're trying to eat together as a family. So how do we ensure this healthy eating lifestyle as a group, as a collective?
So it probably takes a little bit of planning, right? So if you're going to want to sit down for lunch for dinner during the week, then you might want to do a little bit of planning on the weekend and have things, have somewhat of a plan. Like, are you going to do crock pot on Monday and then have leftovers on Tuesday? Are you going to do tacos on Wednesday and sandwiches on Thursday? So you're going to want to do a little bit of planning so that you can have everything ready to go and in stock in your kitchen and you can prep it. So a little bit of planning, and then it's, plan B. You always want to have a plan B. So if you cannot do that, are there certain restaurants in your area that you can order healthy foods from that you can Uber Eats? Let's say you press for time or, whatever, you don't have food on hand, you don't have groceries. Are there certain things like restaurants that you can put on your speed dial and certain meals that you've pre-picked out? Okay, I know I can do this with my family.
I love it. It totally makes sense. It makes sense to me. You make it sound so easy. Though,
I know. Yeah.
And those of you guys that are just joining us, we're talking about setting realistic nutrition goals here with Kat Barefield and, of course, my co-host, Mr. Ken Miller. And, I think, what I'm taking away from what Kat's saying is make it easy, stick it out on the counter so it's in your face. And, as we were talking about dinner, I mean, do you have like a suggestion, like throughout the week, is there, should you have, and I really don't know this, and this is kind of a off the wall question, but is there a time where you should have so much fish, so much meat, or so just, should you just go vegetarian, or is it just really your preference? Like, is there like a healthy balance, I guess?
Yeah, there definitely is, right? But going back to the beginning is it's got to be sustainable. So it's got to be something that you're going to, keep up. So it's a mix between preferences, lifestyle, etc. So in general, from a nutrient standpoint, you want to get at least 8 ounces of fatty fish a week for your omega-3s, or you're going to have to get another source of marine omegas. Just in general, it's an essential nutrient. It's good for inflammation, for brain, for heart health, all these good things. So you're going to want to do that. And then in general, from a protein standpoint, you want to optimize protein intake for, obviously we're talking about active individuals. Active individuals need more protein. So you're going to want at least 0.7 grams per pound of your body weight per day to optimize, muscle health and to keep muscle as you age. And then of course, you're going to want to meet your fiber goals, right? So for fiber goals come from whole grains, fruits, vegetables, etc. So there's a lot of things that are optimal, but again, we got to start with what's realistic and easy for each individual. What do they want to do? What can they do?
There you have it.
Yeah, man.
Exclamation point.
I'm sorry. That little pregnant pause.
Little mic drop, right?
I was thinking, what do they want to do? What do they need to do?
Right. And everybody with nutrition, they want cut and dry. They want yes, no, is it this or is it that? And all good, trainers and nutrition professionals, most of the time they're going to say, well, it depends. What's the context? Right? So what's the age of the person? What are they trying to achieve? What is their lifestyle like? What do they like? What do they don't like? So it's very rarely, black and white because nutrition is so personal, isn't it? It's very personal.
That's right.
Very much so.
And, talking about, these sustainable habits, going out, getting your food, fruits, vegetables, and all the like, but Now we're talking about investment in yourself, and now that we're talking about buying things, we have to consider costs and budget. What do you suggest for people wanting to make this lifestyle change, but now they're looking at their they're balancing their checkbook. How can we keep this financially manageable and, as you're saying, sustainable if this is going to fit into my lifestyle? Because isn't eating healthy expensive?
It can be, but again, it depends. What are you comparing it to? Are we comparing it to like 99-cent tacos or something? Like, what,
yeah, like it's easier for me to walk around the corner, get a medium cheese pizza because I know my kids will eat it. Right. It's a slam dunk, chicken nuggets, all that good stuff.
Right.
But, now it's like, okay, well, outside of money, I pull out what's in my pocket. Okay, here we go. But how do I make that investment, or how do I budget things, or what are some things I can consider when it comes to shopping?
Right. So again, like there are certain things you can buy in bulk that makes it cheaper, right? Like, and then of course, buying fruits and vegetables when they're on sale, buying like beans and grains in bulk, that will make things cheaper as well. So on sale in bulk are the major things you want to look at, from a fresh fruits and vegetables. And then if you can do a local farmer's market, a lot of times, their prices are really reasonable and the food is really fresh. So you get the best of both worlds. And if you pick foods that your kids really enjoy, like the taste of, a fresh peach or, yummy strawberries that are locally grown, they're going to want it and they're going to want to eat it. It won't go to waste. But if you try to get them things that they don't really enjoy, then obviously it's going to be a waste of money.
Well, so Kat, I have a question. And again, I'm thinking about myself, you go to the grocery store and you were just talking about some different fruits and, you see strawberries or bananas and you see the organic ones and right next to it is just strawberries or bananas. It doesn't have that sticker that says organic. Is there a huge difference between the two, especially when you're thinking about cost? The reason why I ask is always it's 50 cents more or whatever. But is it truly better for us?
No. So the difference between organic and conventional, it's a farming method, right? It's organic. They still use pesticides. They just can't use synthetic pesticides. So, and then when you look at the difference between what is the pesticide content of organic versus conventional, yes, organic is lower, but they're both well below the tolerable intake level. So they're still both very safe. And then if you couple that on top of adequately washing your fruits and vegetables, then you're getting rid of more. So when you look at the data, organic foods are not necessarily more nutrition. They don't have any more nutritional content. They do have, for the most part, less pesticides. But once again, both conventional and organic have pesticide content well below the safety level. So I would say if it's a preference for you, if you like organic for whatever reason, maybe ethical, maybe it tastes better for you, whatever, and you can afford it, then go ahead, go for it. But if you can't afford it and it's not part of your budget, then don't worry about it. Get the conventional, wash them, and enjoy them.
My ration, or the reason why I ask, is because I'm like, well, organic, if it says organic, is probably better. So thank you for that. And I don't know.
Yeah. Well, relatively speaking, it is. Relatively speaking to conventional, there's fewer pesticides. But if it doesn't make a difference because both are within safe ranges, then it doesn't make a difference. Right?
Well, there you
go.
Yeah. But the organic industry is a huge industry. So they put a lot
like
of
me. If they're going to add that extra sticker, that means I should buy it. So
we got to keep in mind that it's a business. It is a business to sell organic foods, and so they're going to put a lot of effort into their messaging to consumers, to buy organic. When in reality, I would rather have someone buy conventional and in their food budget than avoid fruits and vegetables because it's not organic. That is silly. You're skipping out on all the benefits of fruits and vegetables because you can't afford organic when it's perfectly fine to eat conventional foods.
Okay. Yeah. No, that really feeds into the budget side of things because, considering when you go to the grocery store and they have a whole section of that fruit and vegetable area that's dedicated towards organic. And yeah, it's, I might go get a banana that has organic sticker and just a conventional one on the other side. But it kind of makes sense to where I could just stick with conventional if that's what financially makes sense, especially when when you're buying for a family of 4 or 5.
Right. Absolutely.
Or one.
Or one. You got to eat it fast. You know what that goes.
That's right. You go to Costco, get this huge thing. You're like, yes. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, we've got to eat bananas for the whole week in order for them not to go bad. So yes.
Or make banana bread.
Oh, yes. If I knew how to do that, I'm not a baker.
That requires baking.
That goes back to the time. And I'm like,
Right. That's right. That's right. It goes back to, can you execute, right?
You need to move closer, Kat. You need to be closer to me. Help me help you.
So what else? What else do people want to know? What are people asking?
Well, I think one of the things is, and you brought up adding more, is if we're trying to make some body change, trying to be healthier, you want to add more fruits and vegetables, add fiber, make more of these conscious choices, like you're saying, getting those, what do we call it? The marine omegas. But in your consultations and when you're talking about people getting healthier, what are, if you can give us just 5 things that you'd like to see people add into their diet, or at least consider adding into their diet as they move forward in the quest for health and wellness?
Yeah. So I would say, if you're active, and I'm assuming everyone that's listening to this is, make sure that you're prioritizing high quality protein, preferably at every meal. There's just so many benefits from a weight management standpoint, muscle metabolism, et cetera. So high quality protein at every, and high quality just means, complete protein sources, whether that's fish or animal products, or if it's, soy or plant proteins that are combined to make sure you're getting all of the essential nutrients. So I would say that first. Then I would say probably leafy greens, eating more, vegetables. There's just so much benefit to getting greens and all the nutrients that are in there that people are short in. And then I would say colorful berries, right? So going back to that, classic concept of eating like the rainbow. Colorful berries, also some type of calcium-rich food. A lot of people aren't consuming enough calcium-rich foods. And so what we see down the line are kids that get, fracture or, easily fracture, or, weak bones, osteoporosis later on in life because they're not getting enough calcium-rich foods and vitamin D-rich foods. So I would say that. And what was the probably I would say legumes, beans, peas, lentils, because they're just so packed with nutrients. They got a lot of fiber in them. They're cheap. So adding those in, and they also help to manage hunger levels. So was that 5?
Yeah.
I think that gives us a good idea of things to add in.
Now, let me ask you this, and what kind of sparked this next question is when you're talking about high quality protein, and when I think about protein, I kind of lump some dairy in there as well. But when you talk about that, what pops into my head is this non-GMO, right? When you get that sticker on there, or you see it on the label. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Because I found myself being a little tongue-tied explaining that to my kids when they sit there, they've got the package in front of them and they're just reading it. So what does this mean? I go, well, let me ask Auntie Kat and see, and see what she says.
This is not my area of expertise or GMO, genetically modified foods, but I will say that to my knowledge, there's only a handful that are officially approved GMO foods. So people seem to think that they're everywhere, and they're not. There's only a few, and the data indicates that they're fine. That there could actually be some benefits to it. Probably more in third world countries where it's a little bit the nutritional intake of the foods is a little bit lower, but there's only a handful of them. So non-GMO in a lot of cases means nothing. It's a marketing tactic.
All this marketing, it's messing with our minds, people.
Yeah. I mean, so I could look it up. Maybe we could do another podcast on follow-up, but I don't, to my knowledge, there's only a few officially approved GMO foods. And the data, in regards to safety points to that they're perfectly fine. That's probably inconclusive right now.
Right.
But that's what the data is pointing to, is that when consumed in moderate amounts, that it's not really going to affect you. I think what happens in nutrition is people want to, they major in minor things. They want to talk about organic or, GMO or alkaline water and don't master the basics, like controlling your calorie intake, eating adequate protein, getting enough fruits and vegetables. Like, let's master the basics. Let's focus on the fundamentals first, and then we can get nuanced and nitpick, because all this other stuff, including artificial sweeteners, they don't make that big of a difference. Organic doesn't. Artificial sweeteners is not bad for you. GMO is not a big deal. Like, we major in minor things when it comes to nutrition, and we miss the big picture. While you're worried about the Diet Coke, you're eating too many calories. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
can we focus?
I love it. I love it. And if you guys are just joining us, we're talking about setting realistic nutritional goals here with Kat Barefield. So Ken Miller and you're just asking all kinds of questions. So poor Kat's getting hammered right now. But
good. Bring it on.
Well, here's my next question. And I don't know if there's a black and white answer, so I would like to see your take on this.
Yeah.
You read a bunch of different research articles, you see things on television, and you go and you hear all this stuff when you go to different conferences. So how many times a day should I eat? And do I have to eat the first thing in the morning to set my metabolism for the day? Like, can you kind of talk through when should I eat? When does it make sense? And how do I kind of set those realistic goals? Not just the food, but when?
Okay, so it depends. It depends. How old are you? Right? How old are you? What are you trying to achieve? Are you working out in the morning or in the afternoon? So I have a series of questions to ask you and all my clients when they ask me questions like this. So you don't have to eat in the morning to set your metabolism. That is a myth. You don't have to eat a certain number of times a day to increase your metabolism. That's also been disproven. So it just depends on what your scenario is. Some people can skip breakfast and work out in the morning and they feel perfectly fine. They actually feel invigorated by it. They like it. They like exercising in a fasted state. Some people can't. They can't do that. They have low blood sugar symptoms. They're dizzy. Their workouts suffer. So it would behoove them to consume something in the morning before they train. If you're older, then like older, 50 and older, then you're going to want to prioritize 3 high quality protein meals a day for muscle health. If you're younger, you can get away with not doing that so much because your body prioritizes muscle mass. As you get older, your body goes, you're done reproducing. We don't really need you around anymore. You can leave the earth.
Oh, wow.
I'm being sarcastic, but from an evolutionary standpoint, it's true, right? You're done contributing to propagating the species most likely. And at 50, you start losing muscle tissue at a marked rate, and you could start to wither away. So if you don't want to wither away, then you're going to want to prioritize protein at least 3 times a day. And I'll give you a number if anybody wants it, 0.18 grams per pound per meal if you're over 50. At least 3 meals a day. I covered that in the NASM Optima in the healthy aging session that I did. If anybody wants to refer back.
Well, I got to go watch that because as you're talking, Kat, it just makes me want to say it was good knowing you guys.
Yeah, you're withering away, Ken.
I had fun. I've reproduced, and I can go away now.
It sounds a bit morbid, right? But if you really think about it, we at age 50 is when you do see a marked decrease in a lot of physiological processes. Not only do women stop producing estrogen, but also your muscle starts to atrophy at a pretty significant rate. And the only 2 ways to offset that is by resistance training and by eating adequate protein. That's it. Same thing with bone health. Bone health is the same way, right? You got to have weight-bearing exercise. You've got to have protein, and you got to have calcium, vitamin D rich foods. There's no way around it. So it's so important. I know maybe we're talking to a younger audience, but it's so important to prioritize resistance training and high quality nutrition.
Yeah. So you mentioned high calcium enriched foods. Can you give us a couple examples? You said it 2 or 3 times already. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on, what it is that we can consume that would give us calcium, maybe some more vitamin D.
Yeah. So, okay. So from a nutrient standpoint, right, whey is probably the highest quality protein source. That's derived from dairy products. So dairy is rich in calcium. All dairy foods, for the most part, are rich in calcium. And then also a lot of dairy is fortified with vitamin D, right? The government added vitamin D into the food supply when our population shifted from an agricultural economy to a more automated, technological. So we stopped working outdoors and started doing machine type work indoors. So a lot of your dairy products are not only naturally high in calcium, but they're fortified in vitamin D. So that's what I mean. Now, and whey is an excellent source because it's high quality, has all the essential amino acids, rich in leucine, which turns on your muscle building machinery. And is easily digestible, especially around workouts. So that's why whey is so popular. But nowadays, we also have alternatives. We have dairy alternatives. So if you want to go with a soy or an oat or an almond, they're not milk per se, because milk is produced from mammals, but they are good sources of calcium if they're fortified. So you've got to read the labels. Does it have extra calcium? And I would say around 20 to 25% calcium, 250 to 300 milligrams is a good source of calcium. And is it fortified with vitamin D? And most likely, unlike dairy, which is milk products, which are going to be rich in protein, these beverages derived from soy or almond or cashew or oats are not naturally rich in protein. So that's why when you compare the two, whey is superior, because whey is naturally high in protein and calcium and essential amino acids, whereas these plant sources are not. Doesn't make them bad, doesn't make them not nutritious, just different, right? And you have to be aware of the differences between them.
Nice. That is a mouthful right there. I mean,
sorry.
Well, I would say an earful, but earful doesn't sound as good.
Well, yeah. I was going to say I have a question too, because this was a hot topic in my family, and maybe, and Kat, I don't know if this is kind of outside your scope. So just let me know if I need to go read some stuff. But let's talk about milk. You're talking about calcium and everything, and so when you go to the grocery store now, you see this ultra pasteurized, super ultra pasteurized, not, grass fed. This, is there a certain type, especially if you're thinking about vitamin D, because I know that now we're seeing so many people are lacking vitamin D. So if we want to add milk into our diets, is there a certain milk that we should really focus on? Does it really matter? What's the difference between all this different ultra pasteurized versus not?
Okay, so there's techniques in pasteurization, but in general, you just want pasteurized milk, because what does pasteurization do? It kills all the bacteria and it reduces the incidence of foodborne illnesses, right? Like getting food sick. So you want to pasteurize milk. I don't think there's any major benefit from all the different types. I think that's more of a marketing thing. So go with the pasteurized milk. Don't pay extra for an ultra pasteurized milk if you don't have to or want to. And then the other side of that, if it's a preference of yours for whatever reason and you can afford it, then go for it, right?
Oh, yes. Well, now you've got you've got all this stuff for kids, like the kids growing milk and this and that. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like,
again, a basic, maybe I would say the ones that are fortified with omega-3s might be a benefit, because it's hard for kids to eat fish and get the omega-3s. So that might be something that I would buy as a, parent with a growing kid, but definitely pasteurized milk fortified with vitamin D. And then if it's got some extra omegas in there, throw that in there. And, I'm a huge fan of variety too. If you want to mix up the different sources, maybe you put in a little bit of soy. There's some benefits to soy, as long as you're not eating it at every single meal. There's, maybe they like the taste of the almond milk, So variety is good as long as they've got the basics, right? Are they fortified with calcium and vitamin D? And I was the mom that was like, you're drinking milk at least twice a day because you need the nutrients, you're growing, and you stop building bone in your mid-20s, maybe late 30s. And so you have this short window of putting all these nutrients, sort of banking your bones, if you will. And if you miss that window, you're setting yourself up for weak bones later on in life. And that might not mean anything to you right now, but you fracture a hip, or you're disabled because you're falling. That's quality of life, right? That's quality of life as you get older.
Well, and my kid is a klutz. I love him dearly. He's 5, but it's like he's falling on his face before catching with his hands. So we've had so many issues. So we are big milk pushers in my family as well. But I one more question that I have before I ask my quote final question for you, and I know Ken's got probably a few others, but when we talk about vitamin D, I mean, I'm sure you're going to tell us that we need to think about having a multivitamin, but am I getting enough vitamin D in a multivitamin, or is there a certain amount of vitamin D that we should really make sure that we're consuming as well?
My answer is going to be
I
right.
do. I drink have a whole bottle of vitamin D pills next to you and just
no.
I'm just kidding.
No, honestly, my answer is it depends. Okay, so what is the richest source?
I saw that one coming.
The richest source of vitamin D is sunlight, UVB radiation. That is where we should be getting our vitamin D. Vitamin D does not naturally occur in food sources, and very many food sources. Probably fish might be the best, but it's not in food. It's in the sun. We were designed to get sunlight, and I think it's a brilliant design because vitamin D receptors are everywhere in our body. It probably affects around 1,000 different physiological processes in the body, and so nature put it in the sun so that you could always get enough, right? How much sunlight do we need in order to have enough vitamin D levels? Well, in general, you need around 20 minutes of direct sunlight to most of the surface of your body. That's what you need. Do most people get that? No. Maybe if you live on a tropical island and you work outside, yeah, you get enough. But most of industrialized society that has an office job, they don't get that much. And that's why we see widespread insufficiencies and some deficiencies in vitamin D. So if you're not getting that much sunshine, the most accurate way to know if you're getting enough vitamin D through your diet and or multivitamins is if you get a blood test. That is the most accurate way to do that. Now, if you haven't done that yet and you want just nutritional insurance, then I would say get at least 1,000 international units from your multivitamin and or a separate vitamin D level on a daily basis as insurance. Now, just to give you context, for me, I live in Southern California. I have melanated skin, right? So what that means is I have pigmentation in my skin, and that pigmentation prevents me from being damaged from the sunlight, right? Which again makes it harder for the body to produce vitamin D. Makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint because I'm living in the tropics and I have a lot of sunlight and I'm exposed to a lot of sunlight, then I get protection from the melanin, the pigmentation in my skin. Right. But then I'm screwed if I'm working indoors every day. So my blood tests show that I hover right around 30 nanograms per deciliter, but in my blood levels. And that's about where you want to be. Now, optimal is closer to 40. So for me to get to 40, I have to consume around 6,000 international units a day. That's me, 6,000. The RDA is like 800 international units. So that's why I say it depends, because it depends on your lifestyle, if you're getting sun, if you have what your genetics are, what your pigmentation is, what your diet is. So that's why I say it depends. But for most people listening, if you're not in the sunshine every day for at least 20 minutes, then 1,000 is a good place for nutritional insurance. But get your blood tested.
Okay. I kind of see us having another podcast with you. Here we are, we're talking about labeling, marketing, vitamin D, and we're here talking about setting realistic nutrition goals. So part of this is about knowing, okay, how are we going to create these habits that's going to help us sustain a lifestyle that incorporates mindfulness, as you said at the very beginning of the podcast, in making sure that our intentions are towards, making the right choices for ourselves as well as for those that are around us. But I think, there's a lot of stuff that you just downloaded onto us, and like when Eric's putting me on the screen, and I'm looking down because I'm taking notes. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff here that I think is just giving us some food for thought as far as the things we need to consider when setting these goals. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, we have to how many times did you say it depends? We have to look at what it is that you as a person need out of life and to live your life. But I think you've given quite a bit of, tips and tricks. I don't say tricks, but things to think about when it comes to making the investment in our health and wellness over the long haul.
Yeah. And that's the main thing that people get tripped up on, especially this time of year, is this all or nothing mindset. I have to go on this diet and lose all this weight ASAP, even though it took me 40 plus years to get to this point. I got to do it in the next 6 weeks, right? Yeah. And that is a setup. That's a setup from a certain standpoint for failure. Now, can it be a kickstart? Certainly can be a kickstart, but then you got to think to yourself, okay, let's say I do this 6-week or 12-week thing or diet or whatever. Then you got to think, okay, what are the sustainable changes that I can incorporate in my daily life? And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. As a matter of fact, it's probably the last thing you want is all or nothing. It's baby steps. What are the baby steps? Now, the last element I want to touch upon is something called celebration. And this is something that's often overlooked. As you're changing your eating habits, let's say you decide to eat more vegetables and you're going to eat a salad every day, right? After you eat your salad, you need to give yourself a little attaboy, attagirl, pat on the back and celebrate it. And what that does is it reinforces and sends this maybe a little bit of a dopamine hit to your brain, and it wires that habit in. And most of us walk around with this committee in our head, beating ourselves up about what we should do, what we should have done, what we did wrong, what we need to do in the future. And we don't spend enough time reinforcing the stuff that we do. So if you can make baby steps in your change in your eating habits and your nutritional habits, give yourself some credit. Allow that change to wire in and allow yourself to feel good about the changes you're making. And it makes the process a lot more enjoyable. Does that make sense? Does that sound corny or does that make sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense. And we tell our clients, from a fitness standpoint, if we're personal trainers, right, we're telling them, hey, thanks for walking in the door today.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I think we can actually celebrate the closing of this this podcast, considering you've shared with us so much, Kat, and I'm actually really serious about getting you back on. One of these things, whether it's expanding on milk or or organic.
Give you a deep dive on milk if you want. I know a lot of people have questions about milk and inflammation and all that stuff, which is disproven, by the way. But yeah, let's do it.
Let's book her, guys. So, hey, Kat, thank you so much. Always a pleasure working with you, learning from you as we always do on these things. So on behalf of Wendy and I, again, thank you so much for spending this podcast recording, and we'll get you again on the Random Fit Show again. So for all of you guys, thank you again. Can't thank you enough, as I'm probably doing right now. But for those of you listening to us here on Random Fit, thanks for listening. Really appreciate you being here with us today, especially with our guest, registered dietitian, Kat Barefield. And if you want to hear more from us, like, follow, subscribe, and comment, and we'll be sure to get something on here that you're sure to appreciate when it comes to health, wellness, and fitness, and Random Fit. So until next time, take care and be well.